The moon of Kelevarni spun in slow, silent grace, a diplomatic gem nestled in neutral space, designed for discussions too delicate for war zones and too volatile for common ground. It was said that the marble floors of its summit hall had never known a drop of blood. That, Ambassador Lyra, Holt mused, was a record begging to be broken. She stood beneath the crystalline arch of the council dome, spine straight, shoulders relaxed, palms folded over the ivory handle of her teacup. Human porcelain, the last piece of home she'd insisted on bringing. Not because she liked the taste, though it was pleasant enough, but because alien eyes always lingered on it, puzzled. Their confusion gave her time. And Lyra always used her time. Your species has a curious obsession with steeped leaves, purred Commander Malarava, the Lutheri representative. He was tall, robed in layers of scaled armor polished to a warlike shine. His voice oozed like oil. Is it some primitive ritual? A way to delay the inevitable? Lyra smiled into her cup. We call it perspective, Commander. Hot water, pressure, patience, and then something stronger than it was alone. The nearby envoys, dozens of species from across the spiral arm, shuffled, blinked, twitched. Some chuckled. Most didn't get it. Malarava did. His nostrils flared. The Zentari host, Senator Arkans, waddled forward with his translucent skin pulsing amber, a diplomatic sign of discomfort. Let us return to proceedings. Yes? Peace is best brewed over calm waters. Lyra inclined her head, as Earth always prefers. Malarava's eye ridges twitched. So you claim, but your colonies whisper of armaments. Your freighters multiply. Our freighters, Lyra said gently, carry grain and medicine. But if you'd like a tour, we're happy to let you search them. Thoroughly. We find transparency breeds trust. The Lutheri's jaw flexed. It wasn't just what she said. It was how. No fear. No fawning. Every word dressed in diplomacy. Every smile a blade sheathed in velvet. But Malarava wasn't here for verbal justs. He was here to dominate the room, and the humans weren't yielding. He leaned in close, low enough to rattle her cup with his breath. You're far from Earth, from protection. Should your species be caught, out of bounds? Lyra met his gaze with a serenity that unnerved even the bold. I've always found threats lose power when you say them out loud. Rather like bad theater. Loud, predictable, and no refund. That drew open laughter from the Avrathi envoy, an insectoid ambassador who clacked its mandibles in a way approximating applause. Others joined in. Even Arkans cracked a strained smile. Malarava turned, robes swirling behind him, the tips of his claws clicking against the polished floor. He said nothing. That, Lyra knew, was his signal. Later, the council recessed. She walked the outer promenade alone, under domes that refracted starlight like scattered jewels. Kelevarni's was beautiful in the artificial way that grand things often are. Impressive, curated, and sterile. A soft chime pulsed in her ear. A private channel. Lyra Holt, said a familiar voice, flat and coded. They're moving. She didn't blink. Confirmed. They're going to make an example. For the colonies. For the war they won't call a war. Lyra took a slow breath, her fingers brushing the pendant around her neck. It looked ornamental. It wasn't. Send the backup trigger to Core Command, she said. All channels. Timestamp only. You won't make it out. She sipped her tea. I know. There was a pause. Then, understood. Godspeed, Ambassador. She closed the line and stood in the silence, watching distant freighters pass across the void like silver fish in black water. Her mother had taught her that peace was the art of choosing stillness even when the storm circled. But Lyra had learned something else, something colder. That peace only lasted if someone made sure others paid the cost of breaking it. Inside, the chamber darkened. The Lutheri delegation returned first. So did the Korthan observers. The air changed, not electrically, but with a kind of stifling, artificial calm. A hush before a symphony none would enjoy. The doors to the council resealed. Senator Arkans shuffled nervously. Ambassador Holt, we have a procedural matter. Lyra stepped forward, already knowing the script. Malarava took center floor. We, the Luthery Dominion, present evidence of human treaty violations, unauthorized expansions, military transports masked as humanitarian aid. This is a breach of Galactic Accord 412b. And as per protocol. Lyra raised a hand. False, she said. And known to be false. Your data streams are forged. Your timestamps are backdated. Your own allies have already denied co-signing the claims. The room stiffened. One or two envoys began to murmur. Malarava didn't flinch. We no longer recognize Earth's representation as legitimate. And, as such, a signal flashed. The lights cut. Then the scream of energy blades slicing open air. For troopers in Luthery combat gear burst into the chamber. Not guards. Not peacekeepers. Killers. Lyra didn't run. She didn't shout. She turned to the crowd and spoke one line. Remember this moment. And remember who invited them. Blasters hummed. The shots came fast. Lyra Holt fell to her knees, teacup still intact beside her, as blood soaked the marble beneath. A few screamed. Most froze. Arkin stuttered. This is an outrage. On neutral ground. Malarava stepped past the twitching body, brushing off his sleeves. This is clarity. The only thing your kind understands. The Avrathi ambassador stood, mandibles twitching. This violates 27 statutes. Let Earth appeal, Malarava said coldly. If anyone's left to file. Cameras whirred as the live feed transmitted across the quadrant. Lyra's body sprawled, her pendant glinting once. Then still. In a small, quiet room back on Earth, 5 officials watched the transmission in dead silence. One of them, the elder statesman, muttered, "She triggered the fail-safe." Another leaned forward. "Is it confirmed?" "Yes." A click echoed. She said the phrase. What did she say? A beat. "You've already lost." "She's coming." In the hangars of a distant mining colony, an old woman stopped sorting crates and whispered a curse in a language not spoken in over a century. In a dive bar floating between smuggler routes, a bounty hunter lowered his drink and muttered, "Well, she's awake now." In a secure compound buried beneath the crust of Ceres, a message blinked into life. 3 words. Schedule the apology. Senator Arkins was still trying to restore order. There must be consequences for this breach. Malarava smirked. Consequences are for the weak. We are the Empire. We define consequence. He turned on his heel. The Luthery guards flanked him, boots echoing on the now bloodied marble. As they reached the archway, a quiet sound interrupted them. Not mechanical, not violent. It was the teacup, still upright, still warm, resting in the center of a red smear. Commander Malarava paused just long enough to look at it. Then he crushed it underfoot. A quiet, final clink. Hours later, the feed still played on thousands of screens across trade routes and colony stations. The clip was short, brutal, designed to humiliate. And yet, those who watched closely noticed something else. A tiny blink in the corner. A hidden signal. Embedded. Lyra Holt had died, yes. But she'd uploaded something. A code. A trail. A message not meant for the diplomats. But for someone else. Someone watching. Someone who didn't need to speak to be heard. The stars outside Kelavarnes pulsed in slow indifference. The galaxy, as always, turned on. But in the shadows between transmissions, in the silence that followed the spectacle, a whisper moved like wildfire through the fringe systems. Not an official broadcast. Not a news flash. Just a rumor. She's back. And suddenly, it didn't seem so harmless. The old freight station on Vel 9 was a place the galaxy forgot on purpose. Rust hung in the air like an accusation. Lights flickered in lazy defiance of repair. Somewhere in the walls, rats or something close, held committee meetings in the ductwork. It smelled like metal and exhaustion. Kayla Holt liked it here. She sat at a corner table in a grimy diner, boot propped on the bench, chewing stale rations with a level of focus that suggested she was either desperate or incredibly disciplined. She wasn't desperate. Her mind was elsewhere, on a marble floor, on a broken teacup, on a transmission she'd watched 32 times since it was leaked. Her mother hadn't screamed. Not once. The door to the diner hissed open with a groan that implied it, too, hated its job. In limped a man who looked like his bones had made a separate peace with time. He was all scar and cigarette breath, limping with the kind of swagger that made everyone look twice. Briggs dropped into the booth opposite her. You got older. Kayla sipped from her dented canteen. You got shorter. He snorted. They said you'd stopped killing. They say a lot of things. Briggs didn't smile. You saw the footage? She met his eyes, gray like frostbite and just as forgiving. I saw. Briggs exhaled through his teeth. Damn shame. She was one of the last ones who thought words mattered. They did. Kayla's voice didn't rise. They still do. But only if there's someone around to enforce the meaning. You think you're that someone? No, she leaned forward. I'm the someone who teaches them the cost of forgetting. Briggs watched her for a long moment. He wasn't a man who scared easy. But he remembered training her. Remembered when she was 15 and stitched a warlord's mouth shut for talking too loud during negotiations. He remembered asking her once if she believed in justice, and her answer, only if it makes them flinch. You planning war? Kayla shook her head. Planning an apology. Briggs blinked. Come again. She unlatched the battered metal case beside her. Inside, nestled like sacred relics, were items no one should have seen in one place. An Imperial encryption disk, a holographic mimic card, an Earth Diplomat's override key, and a vial of amber gel that hummed quietly with encoded blood. Her mother's. Briggs leaned back. Hell, you've been prepping for this. I prep for possibilities. She closed the case. And the Empire made this one real. You alone. Kayla gave a dry smile. Always. You're going through them? He asked, even though he already knew. One by one. Every ranking officer at that summit. Not just the shooters. The architects. The mouthpieces. Anyone who lifted a finger or looked away. And when they trace it back to you? They won't. She reached into her coat and tossed a black chip onto the table. I've got a ghost ID and 10 new faces. Delphi's rerouting my biometric trail every 8 seconds. A voice crackled from her wrist, warm, sarcastic, and unervingly chipper. Don't forget charming. I also make coffee and recite poetry. Briggs raised a brow. Your AI got sass. Delphi has personality, unlike most war machines. Technically, I'm a research assistant, Delphi quipped. It's not my fault my user weaponized me like a caffeinated god. Kayla tapped the wristband to mute him. He talks too much. So do you. Briggs pulled something from his coat and slid it across the table. A small, folded paper. Found that in the old safe house on Nearest 4. Figured it'd matter. She opened it slowly. It was a photo. Her mother, 20 years younger, holding baby Kayla. Both of them laughing. Neither looking at the camera. Just happy. Kayla stared at it for a long while, something tightening behind her eyes. She didn't cry. She didn't have that luxury anymore. Briggs stood. You'll need supplies. I'll get you the drop points. But after this, I don't want to hear your name again. You won't, Kayla said, tucking the photo into her inner coat pocket. No one will. As he limped away, she pulled up the orbital traffic logs. A Lutheri vessel had docked at Delos Station. Mid-ranking official. Previously on Kelavarnes. Now conveniently protected by diplomatic immunity and 4 armed guards. She loaded coordinates into her ship. A refurbished courier-class vessel named Consequence. No weapons visible. All of them hidden. Delphi's voice returned. Ready for launch. And by the way, I adjusted your infiltration suit to better hug your hips. Psychological intimidation and all. Remind me to rewrite your SAS protocols. Too late. Already backed up to 17 data clusters. Kayla stepped into the cockpit and dropped into the seat, hands moving over controls like second nature. The ship lifted, silent as a prayer. The hangar vanished behind her. Vel, 9 shrank to a dull star. I've marked your target's movements, Delphi said. Shall I prep the charm routine or the massacre routine? Charm. At first. Always start with manners. Delos Station glittered like a rotten jewel. Wealthy over-policed and crawling with backroom bribes. Perfect place for Empire trash to hide in full view. Kayla didn't walk in through the front. She didn't sneak either. She appeared, stepping from a shuttle dressed in the gold-lined robes of a Terran delegate, hair coiled tight, expression serene. Security scanned her and saw the identity of Leah Sarban, trade representative from the outer colonies. Nothing flagged. Inside, she strode past markets, through atriums, past a fountain shaped like a coiling WRM. The station reeked of affluence and fear. At the Imperial wing, 2 guards crossed their spears. Name, one barked. Leah Sarban, Kayla said smoothly. I'm here for an unscheduled negotiation with Consul Drevik. He's expecting me. Earth's apologies come unannounced. The guards looked at each other. Then one tapped his comm, she says. A voice cut in over comms. Drevik himself. Send her in. Alone. Kayla smiled. The suite was opulent, with sweeping views of nebulae and a scent machine set to earth lavender. A mocking touch. Drevik was seated behind a crystalline desk, plump and well-fed, rings on every finger, his expression smug. I must admit, he said, you're prettier than your record suggests. Kayla Saturday, you're fatter. His smile faltered. Excuse me. You're used to power, comfort, the illusion of immunity. It's made you soft and stupid. Drevik rose, anger flaring. You dare. She leaned forward. I know what you did at Calavarni's. His hand reached for an alarm. Too late. Kayla tapped her ring. A pulse emitted a silent jolt. The hidden neurolinks in the guards' helmets shorted. They dropped before they could scream. Drevik froze. She rose. You were the one who ordered the security override. The one who gave Malarava clearance to bring troops into a neutral chamber. You signed Lyra Holt's death warrant. His face paled. That woman was a spy, an agitator, a threat. She was my mother. She pressed a device to his temple. It hissed. He blinked rapidly, eyes dilating. What did you? Truth serum, Kayla said. Now I ask. You answer. Then you die. For the next 5 minutes, she asked questions. Dates, names, coordinates. Every word recorded, streamed to encrypted channels Delphi had prepared. Then she stepped back. Any last words, she asked. Drevik shook, mouth twitching. You're making a mistake. The Empire will crush you. Kayla stared at him, and for a moment, pity touched her face. They already tried. Then she pulled the trigger. No mess. Just a sharp hiss. A clean mark on his forehead. A diplomat's execution. She walked out without rush. The station was already locked down. The guard she disabled would wake in 10 minutes, confused and groggy. She was in orbit by the time the body was found. Back aboard Consequence, Delphi whistled. You know, I was going to suggest the truth serum, but you beat me to it. Pull the data. Send it to the Core Leaks network. Tag it under Apology 1. Oh, poetic. I love it. What's next? Kayla stared at the list. It wasn't long, but it was thorough. 8 names, all with blood on their hands. The next one tried to erase the records. Shall I prep the massacre routine? Kayla didn't answer right away. She walked to the viewport, watching stars stretch as the ship shifted to jump velocity. She pulled out the photo. Her thumb rested on her mother's smiling face. No, she said softly. Start with charm. She turned. But make sure they know I brought a knife to the party. Delphi chuckled. A pleasure working with you, as always. The ship vanished into the void, leaving nothing behind but silence and the promise of justice dressed in human skin. Somewhere a galaxy flinched. Kayla Holt arrived on Korvax Prime with a bouquet of violets and a diplomatic smile sharp enough to slice steel. She wore an indigo shawl draped just so, a calculated softness that softened nothing at all. The last 2 names on her list had already been reduced to footnotes. Drevik exposed and eliminated with a sterilized dart, and General Typhus, found inside a sealed containment pod, with a handwritten note that simply read recused. Korvax Prime would be different. The stakes were climbing now. Every high-value target grew more insulated, more paranoid, more dangerous. Which was exactly how she liked them. Her latest destination rose from volcanic terrain like a scar in stone. The Ark's consulate, a diplomatic fortress housing not one, but 3 Empire-aligned factions. And at its rotting heart sat Admiral Krezin, the man who had drafted the original resolution to revoke Earth's neutrality at the summit. He was an old soldier with frost for blood and pride for marrow, cloaked in ironclad tradition and thick layers of state-sanctioned murder. He'd been out of the field for decades, preferring instead to sit behind layers of bureaucracy and guards, grooming war like it was an art. Kayla walked through his front door. The security system registered her alias, Alice Moraine, Terran heritage, diplomat-level clearance, with ties to the Vinari Trade Accord. Her forged credentials passed inspection, like a lie wrapped in sweet perfume. No one looked twice at a woman bearing flowers and kind words. Her entrance coincided with a formal diplomatic brunch, all velvet furnishings, sparkling beverages, and serpentine pleasantries. Species from 23 systems sat or floated around the central banquet, exchanging sentences so stiff they creaked. Admiral Krezin stood among them, flanked by armored aides and pale bureaucrats. He looked like a statue pretending to be a man. His ceremonial uniform shimmered with command badges earned in darker centuries. He watched the room like a hawk bred to feast on indecision. Kayla approached him with a practiced expression of interest. "Admiral Krezin," she said, her voice smooth. "What a pleasure to finally meet the spine of Empire policy." He turned to her slowly, eyes scanning her like radar. "I'm sorry. I don't believe we've met." "I represent the Vinari Accord," she said, inclining her head. "We're seeking perspective on the Lutheri offensive near Quadrant V. Rumors are circling. You're the one they trust with uncomfortable truths." Flattery. Disarming. Effective. Krezin's lips twitched, perhaps the ghost of a smile. "Uncomfortable truths? That's quite the phrase, Ms. Alice Moraine. And what truths are you hunting this far from Binari space?" She met his gaze evenly, the kind that explain why human diplomats keep dying. He studied her. That pause, less than a breath, confirmed everything. He knew who she wasn't. She smiled as if she told a joke. "I apologize. I'm told I lack subtlety. It's a family trait." "Ah." He stepped forward, close enough that only she could hear the words. "You're her daughter. I've been called worse. You'll die here." "No," she said softly. "You will." He laughed then, low and bitter. "You think I'm vulnerable? You think walking in here with a name and a trick makes you dangerous?" "No," she said again. "The recordings I uploaded last night do that. This is just dessert." Before he could respond, a low chime echoed across the consulate. Delphi's voice chimed in her ear, giddy. "Transmission confirmed. Every major media outlet in 4 sectors just got a full payload, including your little chat with Drevik." Krezin's hand moved toward his comm. Kayla moved faster. She gripped the bouquet and flicked her wrist. Hidden inside, a monomolecular blade. She sliced down clean and fast. His aide collapsed, stunned, not dead. She needed time, not bodies. Screams followed. Chaos bloomed like a flower. Kayla spun, disarmed the second guard with a crack of her knee, and palmed a smoke pellet into the air. White fog erupted, thick and suffocating, programmed to scramble biosensors for exactly 18 seconds. She grabbed Krezin's collar and hauled him backward through the mist. The panic outside grew, as intended. Every diplomat would be too busy saving their own life to ask questions. And once they learned who she'd taken, they'd know the questions would be answered soon enough. In a private holding suite beneath the consulate, Kayla bound Krezin to a chair and activated a security scrambler. No transmissions, in or out. Just silence, cold and heavy. He chuckled, though blood trickled from his lip. "Do you think this makes you powerful?" "No," she replied, kneeling to meet his gaze. "I think what you did at Kelavarni's makes you small. But what I'm doing here, that's what makes me terrifying." He spat at her boot. She didn't move. "You don't get the galaxy to fear you by whispering, Admiral. You make a scream." Kayla pulled a data chip from her coat and jammed it into the console. Delphi lit up a holoscreen. Images played. Lyra Holt, standing, speaking, falling. The edited feed paused. Then, another clip. Internal memos. Orders. Krezin's name. His seal. His voice. Kayla turned back to him. "This is your legacy," she said. "Your truth." "I'm just the delivery girl," he hissed. "You think truth matters? Not to you. But the right audience? They love a scandal." She stepped behind him, placed a neural clamp against the base of his skull, and activated Delphi's interface. "He'll stay alive for now," the AI said cheerily. "But he'll be drooling for at least a week." Kayla walked away, without ceremony. Minutes later, a coded pulse from Consequence triggered a power fluctuation that wiped the consulate's last hour of surveillance. Krezin would be found bound, with a confession loaded onto the central terminal. The blade used earlier would be left, etched with a single word: apology. By the time emergency crews stabilized him, Kayla was already leaving orbit. In the silence of the cockpit, she exhaled. Delphi's voice spoke, more serious now. "You've made quite the reputation. They're just starting to notice," she said. "3 more names." "I know." Delphi paused. "There's chatter. Galactic summits reconvening early. Emergency session. Talk of rescinding Empire privileges." "Too late," she muttered. "The summit was my mother's battlefield. Mine's everywhere else." She stood and walked to the armory. There was a rhythm to her planning now. She didn't rage. Rage wasted time. She calibrated, adapted, calculated. She'd long ago accepted that justice was never granted. It was taken piece by bloody piece. The next name on her list was Vor, an alien diplomat from the Sithari coalition, one who had vouched for the Luthari documents. He wasn't cruel, just complicit. The kind who signed off on atrocity from behind a gold-plated desk and called it diplomacy. Kayla didn't want to kill him. She wanted him to live, terrified. Delphi locked in the coordinates. Destination: Orbital Summit Ship Mercy's Grace. Attending 10 neutral ambassadors. Vor's on Deck 3, Suite 5. Kayla changed her appearance in silence. Shorter hair, new pigmentation, altered bone structure. A disguise developed over years. She looked like someone else. She moved like no one else. She docked as an Earth envoy, passed credentials, and entered the summit ship unnoticed. These weren't warriors. These were peacemakers. Idealists. She almost pitied them. In Suite 5, Vor greeted her with thin smiles and cloying incense. "I appreciate your discretion," he said. "There's been political turbulence." Kayla's Saturday truth has that effect. He froze. She placed a tablet on the table, played the recording of his vote, his falsified certification. Then her voice. "Your hands are cleaner than most, but they still open the door." Vor whispered, "Who are you?" "I'm the last mistake you agreed to." He tried to reach for the panic button. Her hand caught his. She didn't press, just held it. Enough pressure to let him know it was an option. For her, not him. "I'm not here to kill you, Vor. I'm here to remind you that the galaxy now watches. And you'll either stand against them or be counted among them." Vor trembled. I didn't know." "Yes, you did." She stood, turned, and left without fanfare. Delphi triggered the backup sequence. Every screen on Mercy's Grace flickered once, then displayed the quote Vor had signed. It hovered there for 1 full minute, then faded. Kayla was back aboard her ship before alarms even sounded. As Consequence shifted to hyperspace, she returned to the cockpit. Delphi's voice was gentle. "You didn't kill him." "No," she said. "Getting soft. Getting smart." A long silence followed. 2 left. Kayla pulled up the last names. Senator Marone of the Outer Spine. And finally, Empress Thalara herself. Kayla Holt smiled, a small, weary thing. No triumph. Just inevitability. "They thought she died quietly," she said. "They thought I was just a daughter." She shut the screen, the hum of the ship steady around her. "They forgot we're human." Delphi clicked once. "Want tea?" Kayla laughed. It was short and dry. "No," she said. "I want to end this." The stars stretched around them, and the hunter moved forward, no longer in the shadows, but in the open. Not feared for what she might do, but for what she already had. The galactic capital floated like a throne forged from ambition, an artificial planet of impossible size, draped in white light and armed with invisible teeth. Every system in the Empire answered to it. Every war, every tax, every quiet death in some unremembered colony originated here. It was the pulsing heart of power. And now it had a visitor. Kayla Holt didn't arrive with an army. She didn't sneak through shadows. She walked in through the main corridor of the Imperial Hall of Governance, wearing a diplomat's robe and an expression too calm to question. The marble underfoot reminded her of Kelavarni's. She adjusted the pendant at her neck, her mother's, now encoded with thousands of hours of classified footage, blood signatures, and the names of the dead. Delphi whispered updates in her ear, voice calm, professional, unreadably proud. All files uploaded. Backdoors activated. The entire Cornet will go live in 6 minutes. Global attention imminent. All systems green. Kayla didn't answer. She was already looking up toward the Grand Chamber, where the emergency summit had just convened. Dozens of species filled the room, ambassadors, generals, rulers, all dressed in varying degrees of silk, scale, metal, or ego. The Lutheri sat smug and heavily guarded. The Zentari were practically glowing in their unease. And at the head of it all, beneath a rising sun emblem carved in gold and bone, sat Empress Valara. She was younger than Kayla had imagined, beautiful, poised, deadly in the way frost kills flowers. As Kayla stepped forward, guards flanked her. Name and delegation, one barked. Kayla looked him in the eyes. Kayla Holt. No delegation. The room shifted. Whispers bloomed like rotten silence. The Empress stood slowly, her eyes narrowed. This chamber is reserved for recognized political agents. You are not one. No, Kayla said. I'm the daughter of one. Her voice carried. The chamber stilled. Empress Valara descended the dais. She was tall, composed, wrapped in robes that shimmered like woven starlight. You came here alone? She asked, eyes narrowing. I did. You assassinated our admiral, exposed our governors, blackmailed ambassadors, and threatened our order with chaos. No, Kayla said calmly. I exposed what your order already was. I offered an apology. The Empress's lips curled. Apology. For what's coming next? The lights dimmed. Not on purpose. Not by command. The Cornet activated. Across the galaxy, screens flickered. On stations, warships, embassies, slums, and farms. Every connected terminal received the same feed. The camera showed Kayla standing alone in the heart of Empire, facing its ruler with hands open and truth laid bare. Delphi's voice, steady and clear, narrated over the footage. Images rolled, unedited, undeniable. The assassination of Lyra Holt. The forged documents. The bribes. The backroom deals. The silence purchased with fear. Kayla didn't move as her mother's final moments played before every eye in the stars. Lyra's voice echoed. You've already lost. She's coming. The Empress hissed. You think showing them this changes anything? Yes, Kayla said. Because they were watching you. Now they're watching me. The Empress motioned to the guards. Seize her. But they hesitated. The Lutheri commander barked. She's a threat. And then the monitors changed again. Protests across neutral zones. Entire colonies blocking trade routes. Sectors declaring secession. Armadas halting movement, refusing to act on imperial orders. Some planetary systems had already begun reflagging their ships. Impossible, the Empress whispered. Delphi's voice chimed in Kayla's ear. The empires fall faster when you take the myth out first. The galaxy's rewriting its definition of power. You're welcome. Kayla turned to the crowd. Your Empress murdered my mother. Lied to you. Lied to the peace process. Lied to protect fear and authority dressed as security. I was raised by a diplomat. I believed in talks, in councils, in compromise. I believed the galaxy was capable of decency. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through silence. And then you taught me otherwise. The chamber didn't speak. She faced the Empress. I came alone. Not with weapons. Not with warships. Just truth. And a mirror. I came with an apology, because I wasn't here sooner. The Empress drew a blade from her side. You'll die for this. Kayla didn't flinch. Maybe, she said. But not before you answer for her. They lunged together. But the Empress hesitated a heartbeat too late. Kayla twisted, dodged, drove her elbow into the Empress's ribs, and seized her wrist. The blade clattered away. They crashed into the council dais. Kayla pinned the Empress with one hand, the other grabbing her pendant. She held it between them. You're not afraid of me, she said. You're afraid of this. The hollow ignited again, Lyra's smile, calm and quiet as ever. Then the names, the orders, the deaths. You built a throne on forgetting, Kayla said. I came to return the memory. The guards surged forward. Kayla stood. Touch me, she said. And every server this is stored on will drop your empire's classified data to every independent system in the quadrant. They froze. Delphi's voice echoed in the chamber, this time audible to all. She's not bluffing. I'm very persuasive. The Empress struggled to her feet. Her face was pale, but her voice was steel. You've humiliated us. No, Kayla said. You did that. I just let them watch. The Empress stepped back. Her empire was crumbling not from bombs, not from blood, but from belief. You'll regret this. I already do, Kayla whispered. I regret I had to become this just to be heard. Silence. And then a single voice. Senator Arkins, the Zentari, stepped forward. Let the human speak. Others followed. The Averthi ambassador raised a hand. The Lutheri must answer for the violations. A Veltrian admiral, whose fleet had once served the Empire, said, My ships will no longer serve imperial directives. The chamber tilted. Kayla didn't need to fight anymore. The truth had taken root. The myth had fractured. And when myths die, empires follow. She turned her back on the Empress and walked calmly toward the chamber doors. No one stopped her. Not one dared. Outside, her ship waited. Delphi welcomed her with the calm of a storm spent. All files are still live. Networks are stable. Multiple systems requesting direct negotiations with Earth. Kayla eased into her seat, closing her eyes for one long moment. Don't rout them yet, she said. You sure? I'm tired, Delphi. A quiet pause. Then, you want tea? This time, Kayla smiled. Yeah, let's have some tea. The ship lifted from the capital surface, carving through the upper atmosphere in smooth ascent. Behind her, a regime choked on its own reflection. Ahead of her, stars opened wide. In her hands, the galaxy had finally been made to listen. And somewhere in the peace between moments, Lyra Holt's voice echoed not in vengeance, but in vindication. Her daughter had delivered the apology. The right kind. The human kind. One that you didn't ask for. One that came when you least expected. One that never said sorry, just made sure you'd never forget.